Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. It's a great pleasure to be back with you again, and I hope you've had a fantastic couple of weeks since we last had a chance to chat and share some jokes, some of the ancient jokes from the ancient Greek text, the Philogelos, and some of them were a little bit close to the bone, I think you'll agree. Well, it's been a busy couple of weeks here. It's kind of winding down with the university year, actually getting a little bit of research done here or there, and taking a brief breakaway. I hope you've been enjoying the alternate sunshine and rain that we've been having as well. And today I've had the joy of looking over some of the fantastic questions that have been coming in over the last couple of weeks. Hi Linda, how are you doing? Hello Fiona, thank you so much everyone for tuning in. But first off, most importantly, it is a prize week. So every month we review all the questions that I've managed to answer on these Q&As over the past month, and with my esteemed guests as well. And we pick a winner for what we think is the best question, and they win a prize. So looking through the what we've had over the past month, some absolutely fantastic questions. But I think the winner has to be, hands down this time, Linda Montague, for her question about how has humour changed over the millennia. So this was great fun, as we did last time, not only reading out some of the ancient jokes of the Philogelos, but also thinking about how humour has changed changed within the ancient Greek world, from old comedy to new comedy as well. So congratulations Linda, absolutely fantastic stuff. Great question. Good afternoon everyone, good afternoon, thank you so much for tuning in. We've just announced our winner of the August prize Q&A, looking back on July, and that's Linda Montague. So Linda, do get in touch please to give us an address where we can send you a prize, which is a signed book, and let us know what you'd like in the dedication. So we've had some fantastic questions coming in. Hello, yes, you Linda, you have won with your question. Congratulations. Good afternoon Patricia, good afternoon Latifa, how are you doing? Thank you so much everyone. Glise, how are you doing? Thank you so much for tuning in, absolutely fantastic to see you. So we've had some great questions coming in, and we're going to kick off from one kind of slightly jealous inducing, I have to say, Cecilia Holden, who writes in to say, love the TV shows. Thank you very much indeed, Cecilia. She's an ex-Warwick student, fantastic, excellent stuff, kind of high quality, and now lives full-time in Venice, Italy. Ah, Cecilia, you lucky devil. What was your favourite thing about visiting here? So yeah, I've been in and out of Venice quite a lot over the past couple of years for different reasons, and particularly, of course, we were there filming with the Italy's Invisible Cities when I was there with Alexander Armstrong, and we were researching the origins and development of Venice. And I think my favourite moment has to be the chance when we I got to scuba dive in one of the Venetian canals. Now, not lots of great things are said about Venetian canals and their cleanliness, and I must admit that in my youth, when I was staying in Venice with some friends from university, we may have dive bombed from bridges into canals a little bit, and some of us caught some nasty bugs from the dirty water. But kind of this time, the kind of canal was absolutely fantastic. We were scuba diving down in an area of canal where the service, whose job it is to maintain the substructure underneath the water of the Venetian houses, homes and areas of land, they were working doing some repair, and we got the absolutely unique, extraordinary opportunity to see up close and personal the wooden stakes that had been hammered into the mud of the Venetian lagoon hundreds of years ago, and thanks to the particular kind of qualities of the water of the Venetian lagoon, the mix of salt and sea and fresh water meant that the wood was not and had not rotted away, but had maintained its function over hundreds of years. We got to see one of these wooden pylons, which have now effectively almost turned to stone, that are still supporting all the fabulous buildings of Venice above. So a very low-tech, old-fashioned solution, still absolutely providing the bedrock of the Venetian experience. And you had to be there at exactly the changing of the tide, because that gave the clearest view underwater. And when we were down there, a little crab appeared, sort of looking straight at me, standing on top of the wooden pylon right next to it, going, "What do you think you're doing here in my neck of the woods?" So that was an absolutely amazing experience. So Cecilia, I hope that you have been enjoying your time in Venice as well. Tell us what your favourite things about Venice are as well, please do. Debbie, you're in a queue, waiting to cross the channel back to the UK. Is this the ferries? Is this at Eurotunnel? It may sadly be only a sign of things to come in terms of additional queuing that we might have to do one way or t'other, depending on what happens with the dreaded B word over the next couple of months. Fingers crossed that sense prevails as we go forward. But let us know what your favourite thing is about Venice, if you're a person who's been in the city. Hello, Colette. Thank you so much for tuning in. So great to see you and great to be back as well. Yes, absolutely. So, Lara, we've had another question from Lara. Lara Adenami, who's asked, how do you combine a PhD with a regular job? Yeah, now, is this something, Laura, that you're thinking about doing? Is this something that you're already doing and you're looking for kind of encouragement for how to do it better or more fruitfully or more positively? I mean, a PhD is a tough job, right? In itself. It's normally often done as a full-time occupation, taking somebody between 3 and 4 years, where they are solely thinking about a topic of research which they are then undertaking and then writing up, producing about 80,000 words. So it is a tough thing to do full-time, let alone alongside a normal job, but it can absolutely be done. Lots of people now do their PhDs part-time, so that they have a longer period of time in which to complete their work, and so they do it in sections. They sometimes organise some time off from their work to be able to work on it for a consistent period of time, but then leave it for a while and then come back to it again. So I've known people who work like that, and I think the crucial thing is to realise you can't work 24/7 doing a job and doing another job on top of that without some respite and some rest time. And it's equally quite hard with a PhD to do it just a sort of hour here, an hour there. I don't think that really ever works, because it takes you a certain amount of time to get back into the groove of where you were in your research to then be able to push forward. So I would recommend that you try and organise with your employer some period of time, say kind of every couple of months, that you get 2 weeks off from work to be able to really work on it. Or if that's not possible, perhaps like an afternoon a week or 2 afternoons a week, if you can do something like that. But don't I think try and do it over your weekends as well as doing a full working week, because that really is a tough ask and you won't end up enjoying it. And really the most important reason to do a PhD is because you are fascinated, interested and enjoy researching the topic. Anna says, my son was paid to do his PhD in genetics. Wow, yeah, absolutely. If you can get funding to do your PhD, absolutely fantastic indeed. There are a number of funding bodies around. They do sometimes fund, I guess it would depend on the subject. Some subjects that kind of work better with business have things called executive PhD programs, where they are intended to be done while you are in the workplace, and normally they revolve around a topic which is related to your workplace. But in classics we don't have too many of those, but it is always possible to find a way if you're that absolutely passionate about your subject. Matt's hoping to do a PhD looking at Julius Caesar in Britain soon. Fantastic, Matt. Thank you so much. Good luck. We need more about Julius Caesar in Britain, absolutely. More about just realising kind of where we walk and kind of in the footsteps of. And I hope as part of your research, Matt, you have been to see Horrible Histories, Rotten Romans, the movie that has come out over the last couple of weeks, which has a cameo role from Alexander Armstrong in. Absolutely fantastic. Linda, work-life balance, the best way, absolutely. You can't ignore it. It's utterly crucial, and it's something that I think kind of in our modern society we have really lost sight of, and as a result we are kind of suffering in all sorts of ways, and I think that we need to try and reclaim. Fiona, if possible, yes, work-life balance, absolutely. So Laura, thank you very much for your question, and if you are thinking about doing a PhD, let us know. I went to a degree ceremony a week or two ago where I'd never seen this before, but when the PhD students came up to receive their PhDs, they didn't just say, this is a student receiving their PhD, walk across the stage, get a handshake. They actually revealed and read out the title of their thesis, which I thought was absolutely fantastic, because it made the doctorate not just a doctorate, but a personal doctorate in their doctorate, their thesis, their ideas that they put forward, which I thought was a great way. And Latifa says, never feel ashamed to defer a module. Absolutely right, Latifa. You want to do and you want to enjoy what you're doing, so do it when it's right for you. Shorty, not going to do any PhD, just a bookworm who likes history. Oh, come on, you never know. Never say never. Who knows? One day that topic may strike you and you go, you know what, I want to know more about this, and there won't be a book to read on it. You've got to go and write the book. Who knows? Daniel, que pensa? Okay, Joshua. Osgood, I don't know. What should we be thinking about Josiah Osgood? Hello, Ken. Hello, Prof. No confessions this week. Good to hear, Ken, that you haven't been stealing or removing anything more from archaeological sites. Thank you so much indeed for tuning in and coming back, and for your honesty and openness as always, Ken. Thank you. Right, we need to move on to a couple more questions. Alexis Brown has been in touch saying, I've just finished Natalie Haynes' Children of Jocasta. Absolutely fantastic book. Hope you've all been enjoying it, and indeed getting a chance to see Natalie, who's touring the country at the moment, doing some great stand-up shows relating to her book. So do get a chance to see that if you can. And it's inspired Alexis to go back to read the classics. So you've got Aeschylus, Prometheus Bound, Euripides and Alcestis, the Iliad and the Odyssey. Any other classics you go with? Well, what other classics should we recommend to Alexis here? I mean, my personal favourite is Euripides' Medea. Absolutely extraordinary play, and for its modernity as much as anything, in terms of putting forward the idea of a powerful female character. Equally, Euripides' Trojan Women. You may remember from when we did a series about Greek theatre, we opened with a Greek film director's version of Euripides' Trojan Women I was watching in the cinema, and it had me absolutely in tears. I think it's an extraordinarily powerful play. And it's some Sophocles, let's not forget some Sophocles in there. Famously his Antigone, for another powerful female character, although perhaps not quite as blameless as in many ways Medea might be. Also Ajax, kind of a very powerful story about the great hero driven to suicide over the shame that he incurs while fighting with his fellow Greek heroes to be worthy of the armour of Achilles after the death of Achilles over at Troy. So there you go, Alexis, some suggestions. Please do let us know your suggestions as well. If you're going to start reading the classics, what would you read? Absolutely let us know. Marietta Favalova, I'll say that again. Marietta Favalora has been in touch to ask this question. This is a really interesting one. I have a question about the places you visit, Michael. Other than seeing them, do they carry a smell? Since I can't be there, I wonder what other senses you're witnessing, and I ask because it helps me to really feel where you are. What was the smell, for example, when the Sicilians were breaking up the salt in your recent Sicily series? Well, this is fascinating, Marietta, to talk about smell, because you're absolutely right. It's a massive component of how we experience a place. And interestingly, when you dive into the research behind smell and how we recognise smells and how smells work and are received and understood in our brains, the research is talking about the fact that smell is in many ways the most powerful of our emotions. It's smell that is more linked to emotion than any other of our senses. It's smell which is more linked to memory indeed than many other of our senses. So that's the idea that we all have, that that if you smell a smell from your childhood, you're instantaneously transported back as if you were really there. Smell is incredibly powerful, but it's also incredibly individual in the sense that our sense of smell and how we react to smells is very much conditioned by our individual experiences as people. And equally, how we understand smells changes dramatically over time. So we have something, unlike with other senses, we have something called smell habituation and smell fatigue. So after about 20 minutes, our smell receptors of a particular smell, if that same smell keeps coming at us, just switch off. We can't smell that smell anymore. So if you go into a smelly place, it smells bad to begin with, but then after a while you don't notice it anymore. And that's called smell habituation and smell fatigue. So kind of smell is a really interesting sense to think about, and how it helps us construct our worlds and our memories and our reactions to things. And equally, I've got involved with the thinking about smell a little bit recently because I've been doing some research about ancient Greek religious experience, thinking about the sanctuary of Eleusis and the mystery cult at Eleusis, and thinking about how we can use our understanding of how people see, how they hear, how they feel, how they smell, to help understand a little bit of what that mystery cult experience might have been like. And one of the things that I find fascinating about Eleusis is that the clothes that people wore while they were being initiated at Eleusis were special clothes they put on for the occasion, and after they'd finished being initiated, those clothes were often then given to babies to use as swaddling, as good luck charms. So you have a kind of cycle here in the ancient Greek world, particularly in Athens, of babies having, in very, very early stages of their lives, being exposed to the smell that would be attached to clothes worn by people who had gone through the initiation at Eleusis. And then those babies, perhaps in years to come when they'd grown up, going forward to initiation themselves, suddenly finding themselves confronted with those same smells, which they could perhaps not explain why they felt so familiar with, accustomed to, kind of comforted by, kind of, so there's some really interesting stuff to be done there. Linda wouldn't have wanted to smell the fish sauce. Well, yeah, but again, that just shows you how individual and how culturally specific smells are, isn't it? The kind of, some smells in some cultures which are yucky are absolutely fantastic in others. Romans liked their garum sauce and they liked its smell. Kind of Glee's old books are your favourite scent. Ooh, yeah, old books, the smell of old books. Nice one, nice indeed. But come back to Marietta's question, thinking about do they carry a smell? I mean, the next stage, obviously, of cinema as well is smell-o-vision. Now, I don't think you can get TVs that do smell-o-vision yet, but certainly in cinemas they're talking about having it as an experience. So you have 3D surround sound, and some cinemas, the seats can even be made to move and agitate to give you a sense of movement. But they're now talking about being able to pump into the cinema certain scents to accompany certain scenes within a film, say, to really put you back into that moment and that experience. So who knows, one day your TV might be able to do it as well, and you can truly be there in the scene, in the places with us, smelling the smells. In relation to the Sicilians breaking up the salt, I remember overwhelmingly the smell was kind of quite a windy area, so we were exposed on a promontory, kind of just on the edge. So there was quite a strong wind, so there wasn't perhaps the strongest smell of say, salt as you might imagine, but it did give that sense of a kind of sharp cutting of the air slightly. It was a hot day, there was a breeze, but there was also an arid kind of sharpness undercutting all of that. That was replaced, though, it has to be said, over time as we toiled away in the midday sun by the smell of sweat and toil and hard labour of all of us sweating away there indeed. Kind of questions coming in. Angela, better the fish sauce than the rotten meat? Yeah, but again, kind of, now is it Norway or is it Finland that have the delicacy where you put a fish in a box and bury it in the ground and wait until it rots and then you eat it as a delicacy today? Kind of, I should know which one it is. I don't know which culture it is, but it's definitely a delicacy in one of those two places. Anna says, were the Greeks as clean as their Roman counterparts? Romans weren't clean. When they talk about going to the baths all the time, actually going to the baths was one of the most horrifically dirty experiences, and if we went to a Roman bath today, we'd be absolutely appalled and run a million miles in another direction. There were no rules about what you could and could not go to the baths with, so people were kind of there in the baths with all sorts of boils and problems and things all going into the water which wasn't being changed over, which was all heated up. So I mean, actually the sorts of diseases and stuff you could catch at the baths, well, who would want anything like that indeed? Kind of so yeah, Romans were not clean, and Greeks neither. No, we shouldn't imagine that they were clean. The only kind of sense of clean that you can imagine is when they rub themselves down with oil after exercise and then use the strigil to scrape off the mix of sweat and oil and dirt, which was then supposedly bottled and sold as makeup and moisturizer to be used by women kind of around the ancient world. So there you go. You could get yourself, next time someone goes to the gym, just ask them to bring you back a nice bottle of their kind of scraped off sweat and dirt and dead skin, and tell us how it goes. Let us know whether it's a good moisturiser for you or not, whether you can feel the effects of it. So how's our time going? Marietta, thank you so much for that question. Hopefully it hasn't put you all off your tea and kind of your biscuits that you might be nibbling on at the moment. We've got some great more questions, but I wanted to stop briefly to talk about some of the things that have been in the news recently. So from the Archeology News Network, we've had 3 temples and a Greek theatre resurface in Sicily's Messina. So this is a new excavation campaign that's at the site of the city of Haleessa Archeology near Tusa in the Sicilian province of Messina. And kind of, I'm a bit intrigued. I don't quite know why they say resurface as opposed to surface. So maybe we need to investigate that a little bit more and say, did they come to the fore, then get lost, and then come back again? Who knows? From The Guardian, this is an interesting one. There's a big row erupting over Pompeii. When is there not some kind of row erupting over Pompeii? But this is between the factions of scholars who are interested in finding out about ancient life in Pompeii, and so want to excavate all the volcanic material covering particularly the Regio 5, the big as yet still covered area of Pompeii, and another faction of researchers, the scientific faction of researchers who are interested in volcanoes and who want that material to actually remain in situ because it is a valuable resource for them to be able to study kind of how volcanoes erupt and the sorts of damage they do in order to better protect the people who live in the area from what is still a live volcano, Vesuvius, that could erupt kind of in the future. So we've got an interesting kind of dilemma here between that kind of in some ways an old-fashioned pull between modern and ancient, but this one, it's not do you destroy modern neighborhoods to uncover the ancient remains under their feet, it's do you uncover ancient remains and in so doing perhaps prevent scientific discoveries which would be able to better help protect people in the future in the face of massive earth events. Kind of a really difficult one to balance out between the two. I particularly like this one, the Archeology News Network in Montenegro as well. An Illyrian god of war temple has been found by Polish archaeologists in Montenegro. Kind of working there last summer, they hypothesized that Rhizon had once contained a shrine, perhaps to Medeiros, protective god worshipped by the Illyrians. Absolutely fantastic. We could be going everywhere and anywhere all around this part of the world and come across shrines all the time. And more of this, please. Egypt, they've unveiled a Greco-Roman era building in North Sinai. Now this is fascinating because kind of it's a huge Greco-Roman era red brick and limestone building in the province of North Sinai, which sadly is not as visitable as it used to be several years ago from a safety perspective. But what's fascinating is that it seems to be a building used to hold meetings for citizen representatives during the rule of the Ptolemies. So we're getting out of the Hellenistic world. The Ptolemy, who was one of the generals of Alexander the Great, who went on to become the ruler of Egypt and found a ruling dynasty he named after himself, the Ptolemies, who ruled Egypt all the way through until when the Romans came and took it. So Cleopatra was the last of the Ptolemies as a Greco-Roman ruler of Egypt before giving way to the Romans. And here we have, up in the North Sinai, a sort of citizens' representatives debating chamber, it seems, kind of for taking important decisions about public affairs of the city and citizens. So giving us a real sense of that kind of micro level organisation going on underneath the big macro geopolitics. In York, this is part of the kind of big new excavations that are going to create a big new Roman centre in York that will rival the Jorvik Viking centre, but they're going to reveal a Roman gateway that's been buried for 800 years under York's walls. That's absolutely fantastic. And we've had an intact tomb from the 1st century BCE come out of the ground in Kozani in Greece, which is kind of up in northern Greece. And what's fascinating here is that the funeral bier, so the actual what the body was laid on, a bronze funeral bier, is also intact underneath the skeleton that has been found in this burial. So that really makes it completely unique as a discovery in northern Greece, so that will be absolutely fantastic to get a spy on, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it will go on display somewhere eventually that we can see it in a museum. What's happening over the summer? So hopefully you've all got your tickets booked for the British Museum Troy exhibition that's opening in November, but in the meantime, if you can get to Cambridge in October, the Cambridge Greek play is on. So this is a play put on in ancient Greek, the original text put on in ancient Greek by the students of Cambridge University, and this year they're doing Oedipus at Colonus, and that's from the 16th to the 19th of October. So get along to see that if you can. And equally, before that, opened yesterday, in fact, at the Freud Museum in London, is again linking Oedipus and the Sphinx, Freud and Egypt. So thinking through kind of how Freud was reacting to the stories of Oedipus, the Sphinx, and as part of his kind of theorizing and philosophizing. So that looks like a really interesting exhibition as well, and that's running through until the 13th of October. So, thank you so much, kind of thing. You're near Cambridge, Linda's near Cambridge, you're going to get into that. So you can go and see the Cambridge play in Greek and bring a text along with you so you can follow the text as you're watching the play. Absolutely fantastic. So, where were we with the questions? We got a question from Latifa Walker asking about what's your method for research and do you need to structure your time specifically to concentrate on ideas, or do you get an Archimedes eureka moment? Oh, we all hope for those eureka moments, but they are, I think, rare. Hello, Denisa. How are you doing? I like your shows. Following with great pleasure. I'm so glad. Thank you very, very much indeed. Latifa, yeah, Archimedes eureka moments are normally there's something when you're looking back on how you thought about something, kind of you suddenly realise there was a eureka moment, but in my experience there's not really one that you feel at the time. The only one that I can remember is coming up with a radio series, with the Spin the Globe radio series that I did for BBC4, which is where we took famous years in history like 1066, 1914, famous because of one moment, one part and place of the world, and we simply asked the question, what else was happening around the world at that time? And that idea came to me kind of in a pretty much a eureka moment when I was sitting there reflecting on the sorts of kind of radio shows that I would like to hear and what's out there at the moment. So that's kind of one example. But in terms of research is a scheduled kind of gradually building thing. And my method for research, I think the thing that really helps me is that you kind of wade in and get stuck into a decent number of books and texts and articles and whatever it is you're reading, but then take a moment, take a step back and review your notes that you've made. So you're just kind of reviewing, going, okay, what have I learnt? What's been really useful? How do I think this is going to fit into my big research question? Do I feel like I know maybe enough over here now, but I don't know enough over there, so that's where I need to direct my next tranche of reading. So I find that very, very useful to stop and take a stock check, if you like, of my discoveries and understanding every so often, to then be able to plan the next campaign of research to make sure that I'm getting the coverage that I need. And one of the things that happens as you become busier and busier, particularly kind of with the other calls on time within the university of teaching or administration or engagement or an outreach, is that you have to be more and more organised to make effective use of the short amount of time that you have. So being planned and organised in advance to go, I want to read these 3 things tomorrow, making sure that you've got them pre-ordered in the library, etc., and then taking a moment to stock check afterwards. Kind of JB Lee, have you a favourite football team? Just watching you and the transfer window at the same time. Well, hey, okay, well, kind of that is competition indeed. Do I have a favourite football team? Not really. I've never been a massive football fan, I have to admit it. Kind of in that sense that I much more enjoyed tennis and kind of some other sports as well. I used to fence as well when I was at school and through university, actually. I fenced kind of when I was an undergraduate in the varsity matches as well at Cambridge. So kind of sports, kind of not so much mass team sports, but kind of smaller one-on-one sports are kind of things that I'm probably more interested in. Perhaps I need another holiday, says Linda. Kind of yeah, another holiday would be nice, actually. That would be very nice indeed. So do I have a favourite football team? No, but kind of whenever England is playing, of course I become a firm supporter of England, kind of whenever they're playing around the world. So there we go. Patricia used to fence as well. Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely great sport. Used to absolutely love it because it was such a good combination of physical activity, but also mental activity and strategic thinking, and kind of for how you were going to plot to overwhelm your opponent. We've got a question. I wanted to get onto this before we finish. A couple of minutes. George Karyaniakis has asked about the sample tapestry. Right. Okay. I have a picture here for you. The sample tapestry, this is what we are talking about, and I'll hold it up several times with different details to look at, but he's asking for what is my take on the sample tapestry. So what you're looking at is a fragment of what is originally woolen cloth, and if you look at the top section of it, you can see what is a centaur, kind of charging, covered and surrounded by flowers, and then in the bottom half, you can see a warrior with a spear, and he's got what we know as a sort of diadem around his forehead, kind of with some indications of his dress as well, and obviously his facial features. Now, what are we looking at here? This was dug up in the Tarim Basin. So this is kind of on the way to China. So we're putting ourselves in the stories of the early Silk Roads, and it was in one of the oasis communities of the Tarim Basin that this was found. And it seems to, in its last phase of life, been used as a pair of trousers. So what this surviving section is a leg of a pair of trousers. But it's pretty obvious that it didn't start life as a pair of trousers, but not least because the picture kind of goes off the edges in both directions. And you'd have to have a pretty long leg to have the rest of this person's body below it. So it seems to have been part originally of a big tapestry, a big wool tapestry, displaying a much bigger scene, which at some point then in its life has been cut up and used for all sorts of different things, including being turned into a pair of trousers. Now, lots of ideas have been made about where this was originally made, and some people have argued that it's a creation of the Mediterranean, even trying to associate it with Alexander the Great. Others have said that it's a local creation in the Tarim Basin of some form or another. But I mean, there's several key, and we studied this as part of our ancient global history module here at Warwick. If you kind of get close to the centaur, you kind of see that it is kind of a Greek-ish centaur, so something kind of Western Mediterranean, but with certain Central Asian, what we would call Central Asian attributes, particularly in terms of the cape that the centaur's got on, and also sort of the decoration around it. And then equally in terms of the warrior, yes, the diadem, it's looking kind of Western to a certain extent, but much more Central Asian in terms of kind of the style of the clothing, of the weaponry, of the diadem, of the drawing of the individual. So in that sense, kind of my sense of it is that this is a Central Asian product. So we might be thinking somewhere in the Greco-Bactrian kingdoms, the cushions coming afterwards, that was created as a tapestry, if you like, the result of a fusion of all the sorts of cultural and iconographical influences that were coming into Central Asia, both from East and West. And was a tapestry maybe exported along the Silk Roads as a gift or as an object to be bought or sold at some point in the past, and then torn up and turned into, amongst other things, a pair of trousers. So on that note of the sorts of things that tapestries can get used for over time, our time is up. Thank you so much indeed, Redruba. I'm glad that you, yes indeed, kind of looking with the flora, you can see all sorts of cultural influences in this. It really is a remarkable object, speaking to the kind of multicultural influence that was just part of the everyday life of people living in Central Asia. Kind of thing. Anna Lee, don't suppose you're coming to Oz anytime soon? I hope to be at some point, kind of perhaps in 2020, so watch this space. Okay, we are out of time. I'm going to have to say goodbye for now, but we've got so many more questions, as always, to get through. Please keep sending in your questions. Absolutely fantastic to receive them. This wouldn't be anything without you and your questions. And next time, we will be next week. Well, next week, 15th of September. 15th of September, 15th of August, next Thursday, 4 o'clock UK time. As always, look forward to seeing you then. Please do send in your questions and do let us know kind of your thoughts as well about any of the topics that we've discussed today. All right, have a wonderful rest of the day and have a great weekend. Avoid the rain that's coming tomorrow, but enjoy the sunshine that will come after that. Take care, everyone. Bye.